I'm here at Beaurepaire Wines. This is a small single estate winery located in Rylstone near Mudgee. The cool climate and limestone soils of Rylstone give the winery a very similar terroir to the major French regions of Champagne and Burgundy, allowing them to produce a taste of France in Australia. Will de Beaurepaire is the son of the founders and one of the directors of Beaurepaire Wines. Will, welcome. It's been a very tough year. Apart from COVID, you've had to deal with a whole lot of Mother Nature. You've had droughts, you've had bushfires, you've had floods, you've had hail, anything that Mother Nature can throw at you. So how have you managed this year?
We haven't had hail, so I might just say we've had frost.
Oh,
frost. Hail is a different one. So I started. So yeah, Jeremy, it has been a very biblical year. I think for all of us, agriculture, which is effectively wine grape growing or being a vigneron, is you're very much at the mercy of Mother Nature. The last two vintages have been very trying. We're happy with the wines that we've produced, but they've come with an additional amount of blood, sweat and tears. Like anyone who's grown grapes, so effectively made wine, is aware that it is definitely the toughest end. But this, for us, it's definitely been the hardest. And I guess if you add this into a list of our last 23 vintages here, it's been the hardest vintage. So.
And how did the harvest go this year? Because you've just almost finished, haven't you?
We've almost finished. So here we are, sort of heading into the second week of April. We're probably about 2 weeks earlier than normal. It started off, I guess, after the bushfires of the vintage 2019 or 2020. Vintage 21, we had frost, obviously in October, which smashed around the yields on our Chardonnay and Pinot. We then were able to recover. We've got a fantastic vineyard operations team, and we're able to rebuild a lot of the volumes. You have tertiary buds that we were able to husband. We then, unfortunately, after we'd taken them off, we had a fair amount of rain, as you saw with the floods in Sydney. We missed a fair amount of that rain. We're on the western side of the Great Dividing Range, and a lot of that rain fell on the eastern side, but we still received about 80 mils, and that was just before we were about to harvest our Shiraz and Merlot, and it ruined. We managed to pull off about 10% of our Shiraz, which was in condition to produce wine. The rest was had to drop to the ground. And we're just finishing up our Cabernet Sauvignon harvest now. It's been great. Cabernet, the way I like to view it is it's a bit like a ceramic jug. You pour water in, the water pours out when it's full, whereas a lot of the other varieties, you give it too much water, the grapes swell, the skin bursts, they let disease in, and it's gone, unfortunately.
Your strapline is a taste of France in Australia. Mm-hmm. How do your wines compare to Champagne and Burgundy?
So obviously, we'd love to say favourably. Wine is always in the eye of the beholder. Stylistically, we are obviously Burgundian family. We have that ethos, the wine's made in the vineyard, which really lends itself to reducing the amount of intervention in the winery. We're very much about trying to capture the vagaries and the differences of vintages. So our wines do change vintage to vintage, and I think that's important if you're trying to talk about provenance and terroir. We are looking for wines that are more elevated in acidity. They are designed for food. It's a very important part and feature of wine is the acid balance, and not overuse of oak. We get on this western side of the ranges, we're cold. We're here standing, we're 650 metres. The mountains around us get up to over 1,000 or 1,100. We are a very cold climate. We get these conditions of inland and cold climate thicken those skins up, especially our Pinot. And with thick skins, you get great skin tannin, and tannins is one of the other backbones of wine. And because of that, you don't need to use as much oak. So you're really letting the wine talk, and that's where we view France. It's about vintage variation, it's about provenance, it's about balance, but it's mainly about food match, and that's what we seek to attain here. Whether we're Grand Cru, Premier Cru, or Van de Pay, we hope we're just making fantastic wine.
And that's basically your wine philosophy, I guess.
Yep.
That's how you do it. So,
Correct.
and the other thing you're very important for you is the terroir. Obviously,
Yes.
you're trying to match the terroir with the French growing areas as well. They say that terroir is about the place. So, how transportable are products from when you're from terroir?
It's interesting. In China, there's actually a gentleman who paid a lot of money and transported a vineyard, literally, including the soil from Bordeaux. We obviously didn't have the funds to do that. My parents, 20 odd years ago, were looking for an area that had some approximations of Burgundy in particular. And they looked everywhere. We're originally Victorian. Our family makes wine in the Yarra Valley. My cousin Hugh's there in the Mornington Peninsula and the Yarra. We came to Rylstone, which is an unknown. We're sort of 50 kilometres south of Mudgee, which is off in the distance that direction. We're about 100 kilometres northeast of Orange. This is a new region. The reason they came here is because we couldn't find the conditions of Burgundy in entirety in any established region. We're looking for an area that was obviously inland. People forget Burgundy is not on the coast. It's 400 kilometres. That's important, as I said, for the skin tannins. We need an area that was cold. There's a fair number of those in this area. We are probably the coldest, one of the coldest mainland sites in Australia. We're definitely one of the last to go to vintage on the mainland of Australia. We're probably closer up here to Central Otago or Tasmania. We get down to -12, -13 in winter. If you stay here a little bit longer, you'll see it. But most importantly, I don't know if you can see behind, this is a valley. Burgundy is all about the valley. It's the valley of the Côte d'Or, Côte de Beaune, and the valley there is planted on what was the old coastline of France from 150 million years ago. And on that coast, you have shellfish. Shellfish become limestone. Limestone makes the soil alkaline, makes the microorganisms happier, healthier, more efficient. Means you have less soil, you have healthy vines, smaller bunches of smaller berries because you've got less water. We were looking for limestone. That's the most important function, because if it was just inland location and temperature, every valley in Burgundy would have spectacular vine, but it's very specific. It's even 1/2 kilometre wide sort of zones across the 60 kilometre length of that valley is where it's best. And so we were looking for limestone, and you would probably off to the left of the viewer's camera or off effectively down south of us, due south of us, is the little town of Candos, and what we did was we looked for cement mining locations, but cement mining is limestone, and it's got to be near the surface because it's not gold. You don't dig at depth, and limestone was obviously discovered there over 100 years ago because they used the cement from Candos to build the harbour bridge. It's called the town. The harbour bridge, and this is effectively, this valley behind us is a continuation. So there's this incredible long continuation of limestone. It goes for hundreds of kilometres in either direction. You see it down on Jenolan Caves and Wombian Caves to the south of us. It sort of goes further north. It disappears because it's 450 million years ago. And what it really, why we're here and why it's exciting to be here is we're talking here very prehistoric geology and understanding. This was off to the west of us was Gondwana land. There was an ocean just behind us, and just over behind the viewer or behind the camera was a chain of barrier islands, volcanic islands, and we are on the western shore. We're on the leeward shore. It's much more gentle seas, and a lot more gentle seas enable these coral reefs and all the shellfish to deposit themselves here and build this beautiful limestone band. As you can see, the vineyard here, it's about 1.5 kilometres to 2 kilometres in length, and it's probably about 500 to 600 metres wide. That is pretty much the limestone band. That's all it is.
And you grow all your own grapes, and you don't bring any grapes in. You've got to maintain everything.
All our wines are made from, and that's been the real interesting discoveries. We came here with Burgundy, Pinot, Chardonnay. This is back in the 90s. There was no Chardonnay demand in Australia, really. Pinot was not the trendy variety that it is today. We always anticipated selling a fair amount of our fruit because being out on our own, we have to do everything. We needed to be we need economies of scale. There is a business side of wine. You've got Mother Nature, you've got business, and you've got fashion with the tastes and trends. And because of that, we planted varieties that weren't just Burgundy. We planted Bordeaux varieties, Cabernet, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Semillon, and we planted the Northern Rhone varieties of Shiraz or Syrah and Viognier, really with the intention to sell a lot of that fruit. But as we went along, we were able to experiment and discover all these amazing different wine styles. And that's why when people look at our range and go, 16 wines, one vineyard, how the hell did that come about? Well, because it started out, we experimented, and we found out that Burgundy and Bordeaux and Loire and Northern Rhone and Champagne are all on the same limestone soil. They're all the old Paris Basin, Aquitaine Basin. The difference is obviously is whether it's inland or not. We find that, you know, an inland cool climate Cabernet, for instance, is really quite special. I can come back and chat about that, but we've enabled us to make everything from here. We buy nothing from in, and some vintages you'll see there'll be holes in our portfolio where we won't produce, where we were unhappy about the quality of the grapes for our own wine, and we sell them.
Okay, so yeah, people have got to come here to learn the whole experience, I guess. And you have a number of different experiences, I've noticed. Take me through a couple of those. What can people experience when they come here?
Look, we have we're a family winery, so we have obviously my parents founded it. They're still very actively involved. My sister and myself, and in terms of, I guess, the way that the business is separated, so my sister looks after a lot of that side of the business with regard to the retail, what we call our retail business, wine club and cellar door. She's built with my father an incredible immersive experience in the cellar door with family members, with the number of wines that we have. It was obvious that you couldn't just do a walk-in 5-minute chat and move people aside. We do have a walk-in service, but you're missing the breadth and the opportunity to see.
So you offer different tasting...
offer different levels of tasting. And the more involved, which is the ones which we recommend. If you love your wine, you want to hear about the terroir, you want to hear about the winemaking, you want to hear about the rationale, the ethos, what we're trying to achieve. And that is normally my father and my sister. So it takes 30 minutes up to an hour on the different tasting levels. And my father also runs on Saturdays a walk around the vineyard for a small number of people. It's called the Vigneron Experience. And just, we're all about highlighting our family and the fact that we are actively involved. So.
And you have a celebrated long lunch in the vines, I believe. When do you do that, and how do you get into it?
It's a very good point. So, Jeremy, we normally hold it in March. Obviously, coronavirus has cancelled that in the past year. It was actually able to do it last year. We have 100 to 150 people on a nice long table. We bring in a local chef who cooks a magnificent meal. We have a great band. It goes for many hours dancing on the lawn. The band that we use is called the Hip Replacements. And seeing some of the dancing antics last year, that was definitely what was probably going to come from it. Look, we do a number of those experiences. We've done a cabaret in our beautiful cellar door. The buildings are 150 to 160 years old here, which we've sort of reclaimed, refurbished, renewed, and that's been a lot of fun. And we've got our eye on the next 12 months of expanding quite dramatically our hospitality offering here with much more of a formal dining option, and with some common accommodation too. So getting access to these things, one, they recur, but we'll be adding a lot more into our diary and hopefully having ongoing options.
And you can find all those on your website.
Correct. At the moment, there's some on the website. The other is subscribe, and you'll be able to keep up to date with what's coming.
Well, thank you, Will. I mean, it's a magnificent place. It's certainly worth visiting. And de Beaurepaire Wines is definitely worth a detour.
Thank you. It is very much definitely worth a detour. So thank you very much, Jeremy.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
If you would like to know more about French and Australian wines, terroir, and are seeking an immersive wine experience that transports you on a sensory journey, then a visit to de Beaurepaire Wines is a must. De Beaurepaire is open to visitors on Wednesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Bookings are highly recommended at visit@debeaurepairewines.com or on 02 6379 1473.